This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are reading through the Menendez trial. Erik and Lyle Menendez on trial for the homicides of their parents, Kitty and Jose, back in 1995. 96, 95, 96 is when this trial takes place. We are still in December of 95. We're going to pick up right where we left off. There were some arguments, if you recall, at the end of the episode last week where they were arguing over what information could come in regarding Erik Menendez's uh, not having a license or having lost his license at the time, because then it would be a understandable reason for Erik to use Donovan Goudreau's license, since he was missing a license and he needed a license to purchase the shotguns. So that is what they're kind of arguing, and the judge and the state are pretty much fighting for any of that to come in. So let's get back to it. They had a very quick break because he wasn't going to give the lawyers any, and then Ms. Abramson was like, I need to use the bathroom. So they went on a short break. Now the jury is back in the room. The court says the jury is back. You may continue your direct examination. Mr. Levin says, thank you, Your Honor. Heads up, I have a little bit of a stuffy nose. I think I sound really stuffy. I don't feel stuffy, but um, it may come off in my voice. So apologies for that. I might be sniffling too, just a little bit, even though I feel okay. I don't know, it's just kind of getting worse as the day goes on. All right, so continuing on with the direct examination, Mr. Menendez, did you purchase any real estate with the insurance money that you received following your parents' death? There was a condominium that my parents had begun to purchase that was finalized afterwards. I'm not sure what money was used for that, though. Where was that condo? In Princeton, New Jersey, near the Princeton campus. Were you going to live there? If I had gotten into Princeton University, I would have lived there. I would have stayed there, I believe. I learned right away after talking to the dean I was going to be delayed for a year, but I believe the condo was still finalized afterwards. Was that condominium purchased in your name? I think it was my brother's name. I didn't sign any documents, so I just don't know. Did you ever express your desire to buy that condominium for yourself? Well, I know that my parents had started it, and there was a concern that if the money was not fronted for the condominium, I think it was $100,000, that the deal would be lost. And so I don't know how the money, I completely forgot the question. The condominium, did anyone reside in that condo before your parents' death? No. Was someone going to reside in that condo? It's where my brother and I suppose I was going to live when we stayed in Princeton. Was there any plan to furnish the condo? Yes. And who had planned to furnish it? My mother was planning on coming out and buying new furniture for Lyle and furnishing it in October. I mean, in August or September. You indicated before that the camcorder had been actually purchased on Lyle's credit card. Objection calls for hearsay and speculation, says Mr. Khan. The court says sustained. Mr. Levin says, did you know how the camcorder was purchased? Objection calls for hearsay and speculation. The court says, perhaps you can establish a foundation. Mr. Levin says, you indicated before that you thought that you told your mother that the camcorder was purchased in a certain way. I thought it had been purchased on her visa and she was angry about that. Later, it got cleared up that it was actually. Objection calls for hearsay and speculation. Mr. Levin says he's already testified, Your Honor. The court says the answer is really non responsive. Why don't you go over it again? Mr. Levin says, did Lyle Menendez use your mother's Visa card to purchase the camcorder? No. Objection calls for hearsay and speculation. Sustained, the answer is stricken. You told your mother that you thought that Lyle Menendez used her Visa card. Yes. Why did you tell her that? I don't know. I just thought that that's how it was purchased, or I said it was purchased on their credit card and she assumed it was her credit card. I'm not sure. How did you interpret her anger upon you giving her that information? She was angry that it had been purchased on her credit card and that was pretty much what her anger was. I want to go back for a moment to the computer with respect to the situation in New Jersey where cousin Eileen, they had talked about her about arranging for some computer person to do something. What was it that you understood a computer person was going to do? Eileen was going to arrange for somebody who worked at IBM to meet me at the house in Beverly Hills to get into the files that Carlos Menendez and the rest of the relatives were talking about on the computer. And were you given instructions with respect to what should happen upon your return to California and in the computer? I was to let them in the house to look at the computer. When you returned to California, were you made aware that a computer person had been contacted to look at the computer in the Menendez house? A few days before I left to California, Carlos Menendez told me that plans had been switched and that his computer person was going to take care of me, and so I went out to meet them. And did you meet them? Yes. Who was it that you met? A couple by the name of the Haymans. Where did you meet them? At the Beverly Hills house. I don't remember where in the Beverly Hills house. And how soon after your return to California from New Jersey did you meet the Haymans? I think it was that day. It might have been the day after. Do you know approximately what day this would be, or September the 1st, the 31st of October, I mean August? Were the Haymans allowed access to your house? Yes. And did you see them do something? I saw them working on the computer. Did they tell you the results of their work? Yes. And what did they tell you? They told me that the computer had been wiped and new information put back on it, but that the files no longer existed. Did you understand what that meant at that time? That the files no longer existed. Did you know what the files the Haymans were talking about? Did you know what files, sorry, the Haymans were talking about? Yes. What files were the Haymans talking about? Three called Menendez, List, and Will. Did you learn at some point in time that files had been erased from the computer? Yes. When did you learn that? I learned it when I got a hold of my brother several days later. Several days after the Haymans came? Right. And how did you know that there were files that were labeled Menendez, List, and Will? Carlos Menendez told me at the memorial service in New Jersey. Well, did he tell you how much he knew that did he tell you how it was that he knew that there were such files in the will? Himself, my Aunt Joan were fiddling with the computer and had discovered them on the computer, and the relatives were pretty much talking about it or discussing whether or not anything could be valid in New Jersey. Did Was it your state of mind that someone had actually seen a file or a name of a file? A name of a file. To your knowledge, did anyone ever discover a file? Turned out well, at least from what the court says, you can answer the question yes or no, actually. The witness says, I think the answer at the time in 89. Mr. Levin says, yes. Did anyone? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Did anyone indicate to you that they had actually seen a file, or was it the name of a file? The name of a file. Did Mr. Heyman indicate that he even found those names? No, he said that he did not. So what is your state of mind that the names had been erased? Yes, or wiped? And do you know how it was that they came to be erased? Yes, or deleted. Right. What was it that you knew with respect to the deletion of those names? Mr. Khan says, objection, irrelevant, and calls for hearsay. The court says, are you asking him now what does he know? What did he know at some earlier time? Mr. Levin says, then. The court says, on September the 1st or August 31st, or what? Mr. Levin says, I'll try to clear it up. Following the incident with the Haymans, did you have a conversation with your brother? Yes. And before you had a conversation with your brother, did you have any information that your brother had done something to the computer? Objection, calls for hearsay and irrelevant. The court says, what is your offer of proof? Levin says, it only goes to explaining the situation and explaining Mr. Menendez's state of mind and his knowledge of this particular subject. The court says, you mean after the Haymans had been there? Yes, says Mr. Levin. The court says, sustained. Mr. Levin says, was there a time when someone handed you a note? Objection vague, says Mr. Khan. The court says, well, at some point we'll clarify it, but one thing at a time here. Do you understand the question? The witness says yes. Mr. Levin says, and where did someone hand you a note? A security guard handed me a note in the Beverly Hills home. When? The day that I arrived home from New Jersey. And did you read the note? Yes. Could you tell could you tell if it was from Lyle Menendez, if it was his handwriting? It was not Lyle's writing. Did you at some point in time call Lyle Menendez? God, with this stuff he knows, I can't say Menendez, sorry. Did you at some point in time call Lyle? Yes. And did you have a discussion with him concerning the computer? Well, I tried to call him as soon as I got the note before. I tried to reach him several times before I actually spoke with him. Was the call made in relationship to the information on the note? Yes. What did the note say? Objection, irrelevant, sustained, and hearsay. Ms. Abramson says, can I have a moment, Your Honor? And Ms. Abramson and Mr. Levin confer. Mr. Levin says, did you know where your brother was when you were in California and had returned from New Jersey? Objection, irrelevant, overruled. I had thought that he was in New Jersey. Was he in New Jersey? Objection, lack of foundation, sustained. Why did you think your brother was in New Jersey? I had spoke with him a few days earlier when he was in New Jersey. A few days earlier from what point? From your return to California? Right. And he was in New Jersey at that time? Yes. When you left for California, did your brother come with you? No. You felt that he was still in New Jersey? Right. When you got to California and you saw the Haymans, had you seen your brother in California? No. I got word that he had been in California. And how did you get that word? Objection, calls for hearsay. Sustained. Mr. Levin says, did you later learn that your brother had returned to California? Objection, calls for hearsay. The court says, perhaps you can lay a foundation by something that wouldn't be hearsay. Mr. Levin says, following the incident with the Haymans, did you try to find out where your brother was? Yes. Where did you first call to find your brother? Following the Haymans' arrival? Yes. Well, I first called before they arrived. I continued to call my Aunt Terry and to New Jersey to try to find them. I'm sorry, when you came back to California after you received this note, did you try finding your brother? Yes. And where did you call? I called my Aunt Terry and was perplexed over what was going on and said, I received word that Lyle was in California. Where was he? Did the note have something to do with your state of mind with respect to the computer? Objection, irrelevant. The court says it's still hearsay. Objection. Mr. Levin says, did you ever talk to Lyle Menendez in New Jersey? Yes. And what did you talk about? Objection, irrelevant. Sustained. Mr. Levin says, did you discuss the computer with Lyle Menendez? Objection, calls for hearsay and irrelevant. Sustained. They really don't want this in there. Mr. Levin says, was this discussion with Lyle Menendez, did it take place before the Haymans came to the house? No. And did it take place after, or what period of time lapsed after the Haymans left did you have this conversation with Lyle Menendez? A day or two. Where did you speak to Lyle Menendez? Where was he? I believe he was at my Aunt Terry's. Now you heard, I believe it was Mr. Whitkin who testified in this trial. I saw Mr. Whitkin testify. And you heard his testimony? Yes. Did you arrange for Mr. Whitkin to come to your house? No. Did you know that Mr. Whitkin had been to your house? Objection. Irrelevant. Well, the court says, how do you know? Mr. Levin says, well, first, I want to establish if he knew that. The court says, well, perhaps. Mr. Levin says, if the prosecution's willing to concede that he didn't, that's fine. The court says, again, was he? Did he see him? How would he know? Mr. Levin says, exactly. The court says, why don't you ask him? Mr. Levin says, did you ever see Mr. Whitkin at your house? No. Did you ever talk on the telephone to anyone named Mr. Whitkin? No. Did you ever see any other or any notes at your house that a computer person named Mr. Whitkin had been to your house? No. Did Mr. Heyman say anything to you that caused you to believe that a computer person had been there before? I was highly suspecting it or knew it at the time. I don't remember. And what was that suspicion based on? Objection. Irrelevant. Calls for hearsay. The court says, well, on that issue, it would call for hearsay. Objection sustained. Mr. Levin says, when was the first time you talked to Lyle Menendez after the Haymans left your house? A few days after they had left. Did you talk to Lyle Menendez about that computer? Yes. Did Lyle Menendez have knowledge of Mr. Whitkin? Objection calls for hearsay. Sustained. So the fact that some other computer person was on their computer before the Haymans, that could be the person they could use as a scapegoat, as the person who erased the files, perhaps. Ms. Abramson says, could I have a moment, Your Honor? They confer again. Mr. Levin says, did you know before you came to California that Mr. Whitkin was going to arrive? No. Did you know of the existence of Mr. Whitkin? No. And did you know if your brother Lyle Menendez was coming to California before you arrived? Did you know when he was coming to California? No. Did you have any plans when you were in New Jersey as to what you were going to do after the memorial service? After the memorial service in New Jersey? Yes. I knew that at some point I was going to go back and meet the computer person at the house, but other than that, I had no plans. Did you have any idea where you would be living or where you would be staying following you leaving the memorial service in New Jersey? No. Did you have plans to live in the Beverly Hills location? I didn't want to live in the Beverly Hills house. Had you purchased any businesses with the money from the insurance from the proceeds of your parents' death? No. Did you hire a tennis coach? Yes. Who was that? Mark Heffernan. Why did you hire a tennis coach? I decided eventually that to play tennis, it was the right thing that I knew how to do. And so I decided to hire Mark as my coach and train me. Did you tell Detective Zoller that that was your plan on September the 17th, 1989, that you were thinking about that? Yes, I did. And what was your plan or your idea? Your intent concerning your tennis career. Did you have one? At what point? At that point, when you hired Mark Heffernan. I wanted to go train on the professional circuit. Do you recall when it was that you hired Mark? Training started the second week of November. Of 89? Yes. And did you establish some kind of training schedule with Mark Heffernan? At first, it was from 8 in the morning to 5 p.m. And yes, from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening, what was it that you would do? I would train on the tennis court. I would hit with my brother, with my brother who was also in training at that point. I would exercise, Nautilus workouts, swimming. We would eat lunch. We'd monitor my food. Every hour was something different. He was devising something different ways. I'm sorry, different ways to train. What was your feeling about this time? About what? About your future? About your tennis career? About your life? It was very uncertain. It was very lost. I told Mark that I couldn't get into school. I wasn't sure that I mentally was able to go to school at that point. I told him I would train with him for a year until the fall semester of the next school year, and then I might go to back to school. I might go to school. I was very uncertain. I wasn't sure what to do with myself, and so tennis was the best thing that I could come up with. At this time, Mr. Menendez, it's a couple 3 months after the death of your parents. How did you feel about that? I felt horrible. By that time, it was 2 months later. It was very, very depressing and extreme guilt, and I wasn't sure how I was going to go on. It's probably like eating him alive inside, not being able to express his remorse for what he had done. Did you know to tell somebody that you had killed your parents? Yes. Did the hours change that you had established with Mark Heffernan from 8 to 5? Yes. And what did it change to? 8 in the morning until 7 p.m. at night. And why did you change from 5 to 7? At 5, when I had been getting off, I was left alone at night and it was a very lonely period and I had too much time on my hands and I didn't want to be alone for such a long period of time. I wanted something in so I wanted something so I wouldn't have to think about things. I wanted more of a training school so that I would be busy and not have to be alone. Did you have regular contact with your brother Lionel Menendez during this period? Or I had regular contact with my brother throughout, either on the telephone or face to face. Where was Lionel Menendez in November of 1989? He was living at the Marina City Club training with us. Is this where you lived, at the Marina City Club? Yes. Who did you live with? I had a roommate named Noel Nedley. Who's Noel Nedley? God, I cannot talk with this freaking nose. Very frustrating. Apologies. Who is Noel Nedley? He's a friend of mine whose mother also lived at the complex and a guy I used to know in high school. What was the matter of your residence? Did you own? Did you lease? I rented. Month to month? It was a 6-month lease. And the unit that you resided in, that was right next door to Noel Nedley's mother. No, but she lived in the complex. Was that a factor that you took into consideration when you chose to stay at the marina? Yes. And why? She was a wonderful mother. I circled that, or I highlighted it because I saw it when I was going through and uh, breaking up where, my breaks and stuff are going to be. And I saw that, and it just breaks my heart. So, the factor that he looked into this particular club was because a friend of we'll just say Noel, since I can't say his last name, Noel's mother lived in the complex, and he wanted to live there because she was a wonderful mother. Think about the mother he had and how she lacked in so many ways in nurturing them and caring for them and giving them the love and attention that they needed when they were younger and the care that they needed. So his reasoning for wanting to live in this Marina City Club was because a wonderful mother lived there. He could get mothered a little bit by someone, a friend of his mother. I really liked her a lot. She would cook us dinners, something Kitty would never do, or if she did, they all said she was poisoning them. It was nice being over at her place, and there wasn't many people in my life at that time, and she was one of those that I enjoyed being with. How long did you live at the Marina City Club? Until I was arrested. So in March of 1990? Yes. And when did you first take up residence at the Marina City Club? In either late October or early November of 1989. They had tennis courts there? Yes. Was that another reason why you stayed there? Yes. How much was your rent? We shared rent. The total was 2,500 a month and he paid 700. So you paid the balance? Yes. How about food? Who paid for food? I Did you each pay for your own food? I guess, yes. Were you supporting Noel while you were living there? In a way, yeah. And in what way? He would go out to the grocery store with me and I would just buy everything. How would you pay for these items? Either cash or by credit card. The credit card that Aunt Marta gave you? Yes. Did you know the balance of the account which Aunt Marta held in your name? No. Was there a time when you made a loan to your brother Lyle Menendez? Yes. And when did that occur? Right before we began renting. What kind of loan did you make to him? Before we rented, we weren't sure if we should buy, and we were looking at different places, maybe to buy versus rent. And on the top floor, there was a place that he was thinking of buying, and he put down a down payment for further consideration. When you say you put down a down payment, how much was it? 29,000. Was that money you loaned to Lyle? Right. That was for Lyle Menendez to purchase that unit. If he eventually decided, yeah, he would come back or he would pay me back. When did you leave for the tournament in Israel? February 20th or 22nd. Between the time that you lived in the Marina City Club and which you had said was around November or to February or March, yes, was Lyle Menendez in California continuously during his period of time? Between November and February? Yes. He was renting an apartment right next door to mine throughout, but he stopped playing tennis and decided to move back to Princeton, New Jersey, in late December or early January. By this time, had all your relatives returned back east? I don't know why that E looked like an L to me. Sorry. By this time, had all your relatives returned back east? No, my grandmother was living with me sometimes and living at the Berkeley Hills house. Living with you? Where? At the Marina City Club. You heard the testimony of Mark Slotkin? Yes. I'm sorry, that you borrowed some money from him? Right. Was there a trip that you took where Mark Slotkin was also there? Yes. And when did that trip take place? It was after I had come back from Christmas in New Jersey with the relatives. Must have been 28th, 29th of December. Where did you go? I went up to Lake Tahoe with my roommate, Bob Bavarian, and another friend. I can't remember at this time. Mark was up where Mark was up there with his girlfriend and another couple. Was this prearranged that Mark would be up there? Did you know? I was over at his house on like December 20th, and I told him that I was going to be up there with my friends, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be up there too." So we arranged to meet up there at the same time. Well, did you borrow money from Mark Slotkin while you were at the lake house? Yes. Was that related to gambling? Yes. How would you describe Erik Menendez as a gambler? I had never gambled before. I lost. And you had just turned, I believe, 18 or 19 years old? Yes. How much money did you borrow from Mark Slotkin? I no longer remember. Do you have an idea as to how much it was? Was it more than 5,000, less than 5,000? Thought it was less than 5,000, but it makes no difference what, somewhere around there. Did you pay him back? Yes. How did you pay him back? I thought I had written him a check. I don't remember now. Were you ever attempting to keep a secret that you had lost money up at Lake Tahoe? No. I want to ask you some questions now concerning the tape recording that the prosecution played in court that's been identified as December 11th, the tape recording of Dr. Oziel. Ms. Abramson says, "Excuse me, Your Honor," and then that portion of the clip is played. Mr. Levin says, "Do you recall the conversation playing a recorded tape conversation, bearing any voices that you now recognize?" Yes. And whose voices did you hear on that tape? My brothers, myself, and Dr. Oziel. And from the contents of that. Um, sorry. The question is odd. And from the content of that conversation, could you tell the date that that conversation took place? From the words that were spoken or from memory of when it took place? From your memory or when it took place? Yes. And when did that conversation take place? December 11th, 1989. Now, on that tape, you're heard to be discussing some things that you did not testify to in this trial, correct? Yes. And you heard things that Lyle Menendez said in that conversation to which you have not testified to in trial, correct? Right. Had you admitted to Dr. Oziel before December 11th, 1989, that you had taken your own parents' lives? Yes. When did you, my dog's breathing really heavily in her sleep. When did you admit to Dr. Oziel that you killed your parents? October 31st of 1999, 1998. Wrong again. 1989. Yes. Who was present when you admitted to Dr. Oziel why you had killed your parents? Who or when? I'm sorry, who? Myself and Dr. Oziel. Did you tell Dr. Oziel on October 30th why you had killed your parents? No. Now, was there a reason why you didn't tell Dr. Oziel on October 31st why you killed your parents? Yes. Why? I hadn't been expecting to tell him on that day. It came out because of what was happening in the conversation. I wasn't expecting to tell him. I wasn't expecting to go into why. I didn't want to talk about sex between my father and I. And and by that time he had already called my brother to come over to the session, and I felt as though I had let down my brother and his trust in me in even talking to Dr. Oziel. Did you call Dr. Oziel for the appointment that took place on October 31st, 1989? Yes. Did you call him for a particular reason? Yes. What was the reason that you called Dr. Oziel to see him? My cousin Henry told me that I had better see Dr. Oziel. Had you had a conversation with cousin Henry that preceded your telephone call to Dr. Oziel? Yes. What was the nature of that conversation? Just, or strike that, when did this conversation take place with cousin Henry and yourself? Several days before I called Dr. Oziel. And before you had that conversation with Dr. Oziel and this conversation with Cousin Henry, hadn't you seen a doctor, a medical doctor? Yes. When did you see a medical doctor? On one of my trips back to New Jersey in early September, I believe it was September 12th. Were you experiencing some difficulty with respect to your physical condition that required you to seek out the services of a doctor? I was having extreme ulcer-like pains. How would you describe your emotional condition of September of 1989? Very distraught, extremely depressed. What doctor did you see? My old doctor, who I had seen before, was not there, so I saw an associate of his. Did you receive any kind of medical treatment? Yeah, pills that I was supposed to take to calm the pain, the ulcer. Were you having trouble sleeping? Yes. Were you consumed by any particular thought? Yes. What was that thought? Seeing my parents dead, the thought that I had killed them. The whole night I wasn't able to sleep. I slept waking up out of nightmares, and it was giving me a tremendous pain in my stomach. Whoa. Did you talk to Lyle about your problems? I tried to. When did you try? Several times in September and October. Oh, sorry, wasn't scrolling. Several times. And did you talk to Lyle about these problems? I would bring it up to him, and he would we'd be at my parents' grave, and it was because of how he was feeling and things that he was telling me made it very difficult. What was it that you wanted to talk to Lyle about? Just what was happening. The fact that my parents had died, the fact that we had killed them. I didn't discuss with my brother afterwards what did this mean. He's already explained all of this before. What did this mean about us as people? Why it why it had come down to this and what we were doing to or what we were going to do about the terms of the rest of our lives. My family had been destroyed and I needed to hear that I wasn't a bad person and I needed to have some foundation in my life, something to work from, and I was very lost. And so I would try to speak to Lyle about these things. What were you looking for? Comfort. Comfort, if I could say the word. Comfort. Answers and reasons. Did you feel, or did Lyle Menendez offer you such comfort? He was consumed with his own pain. He kept talking about the reload, about running back into the home or into the room and not having control and shooting my mom after she stopped moving. And he kept talking about that. And this wasn't what I wanted to hear or talk about. It kept going back to the images that he had, and now he was having trouble dealing with it. Well, that's how he was coping, but obviously it wasn't, neither one of them were really coping yet until they start taking accountability. And I had several conversations, and each one came back to him shooting mom and how he could go back. And objection, I would object to this. It calls for hearsay, non responsive motion to strike. Court says the objection's a little late. The answer will stand. Move on to your next question. Mr. Lemon says, did Erik Menendez want to admit that you killed your parents? I didn't want to talk about that. I didn't want to talk about the shooting. I just wanted to talk about who I was as a person at this point, and I needed to tell people. Did things start to happen after your relatives started to arrive in California concerning your feelings about your parents? Yes. And what kind of things occurred? Everyone would reminisce. Everyone would talk about what a successful businessman my father was and how much higher in the business world he was going to reach. And what a powerful and strong, did I just read that? And what a powerful and strong man he was. And I would talk to my Aunt Joan and my Aunt Marta about my mother, and memories about her just brought a lot of pain. It made my parents more human to me, things that I didn't know about, and it made me tremendously miss them. Did you love your mother? Objection, vague as to time. Sustained. When you heard these things from your relatives about your parents, did you love your mother? Yes. Did you love your father? Yes. Did you miss them? Extremely, because they made him sort of independent on them. And did you want to tell someone what you had done? Yes. How did you feel that you could tell someone what you had done, the people that you knew? You mean my aunts, my grandmother? Yes. I just, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it to them. I couldn't face them with that truth. I tried to with my cousin Peter one time when we were on the beach, and I just couldn't do it. When you say you couldn't face them with the trial, what truth was that? I couldn't let them down. I couldn't. Objection. Motion to strike. Non-responsive. The court says, I believe he's responding to the question. Overruled. Erik goes on saying, I didn't want them to know that I had done this, that my brother had done this, especially my grandmother. And so I brought a clear, I'm sorry, I brought a great sense of isolation from them because I couldn't face them having this knowledge. Mr. Levin says, did you hate your father because he had molested you or for most of your life? And then, let me read that again. Sorry, the congestion in my nose and just everything is making me not sound great, and I apologize. And then I can't even like get through these things. Did you hate your father because he had molested you for most of your life? Sometimes. Did you hate your father? Strike that. Did you feel that there was any way that you could tell anyone why you killed your father without telling him about the molestation? That was the center of it. Did you kill your father because he had molested you? No. Did you consider telling your relatives? I I had discussions with my brother. If they found out, we would tell them, but it never blossomed into me telling them until after we were arrested. Was Dr. Oziel at any memorial services? Yes. Now, when you say Dr. Oziel, when you saw him on the 31st of October, did you plan or intend on admitting to him that you had killed your parents? Objection, asked and answered. Overruled. Witness says, no, I had no intention of doing that. Mr. Levin says, and when you went to see Dr. Oziel, what specific reason did you see him for? He says, my cousin Henry was worried about me and told me I should see him, and I agreed. And the reason that you saw him, was this related to your emotional condition? That I just was having trouble living with myself. Well, the fact that you were having trouble living with yourself, did it cause you to feel any, strike that, were you depressed? Yes. Did you want to take your own life? Yes. Did you have any dream or visions of taking your own life? Yes. What kind of things were coming through your mind? Dreams of asking a friend of mine to kill me or a relative to kill me and them not wanting to do it, or them doing it, and dreams of dying and being in this extreme peace, of not having this guilt and the regret overwhelm me each day. And it was just an extremely peaceful thought, and it made me yearn to end the pain. And I told my cousin Henry about those thoughts, and he was very worried and asked me to see Dr. Oziel. He, in fact, called Dr. Oziel. So Erik didn't even make the appointment, his cousin did. I don't remember that in coming out in the last trial, but there's a lot of facts that may slip your mind over time. On October the 31st, 1989, Mr. Menendez, did you tell Dr. Jerome Oziel of these feelings that you just relayed to the jury? I tried to. What did you tell him? I told him how much I missed my parents, that I was lost, uh, that I had lost a lot of weight, that I was having trouble living with the fact that I was spending their money, what to do with that, what to do with the money. I was just rambling on about what I thought my father would want in my life and what I should do with my life, what my tentative plans were. And he wasn't understanding why I no longer wanted to live. If someone else had killed my parents, why I would feel so extreme about it. Did Dr. Jerome Oziel know your mother and your father? Yes. If you remember from trial one, Jose hired Dr. Oziel basically because Dr. Oziel was unethical, because he wanted to know everything that the brothers were saying in their sessions. He was still controlling the brothers through the therapy sessions that he was allowing them to have, right? By making sure that everything that was being told to their therapist was being relayed back to them, the parents. So, yes, mother and father did know Oziel. And to your knowledge, had he spoken to both your mother and your father before? He had had private sessions with them. Sorry, I'm boiling here. I need a fan for a minute. I'm having a hot flash. Had he had private sessions with them? Oh, sorry. To your knowledge, had he spoken to both your mother and your father before? He had had private sessions with them. Did Dr. Oziel begin to tell you things that he felt about your mother and your father? Yes. Did Dr. Jerome Oziel appear to be concerned about your mental condition? At first, I thought he was. How did he communicate to you that he was? I don't think he was really, I don't think he really said anything, but he was a psychiatrist, and so I just assumed that he was. Did he ask you a lot of questions about your feelings? Before I told him that I had done it or after? Before. He was trying to get to the bottom of my feelings in terms of why I would feel that I no longer wanted to live or couldn't live with myself if someone else had killed my parents. He wasn't getting it. There was no bridge. And it was at that point that I decided to bridge the gap. So you had told Dr. Oziel your feelings, your emotional condition, before you told him that you had killed your parents? Yes. And how did the conversation, the discussion come up with that you had killed your parents? That you just blurted it out? No. How did it arise? I asked if I could go for a walk, and he said sure. And we went outside his room, so to speak, and we went down to the sidewalk, and I was talking to him, and we went up the sidewalk, and I was heading toward a church that I had gone to before, which was above Santa Monica, and we were just walking, and I was telling him about my father and how I wanted to write a book about my father, and I was telling him about a lot of things about my father, and how I wasn't able to communicate with Lyle because of things that his own difficulties in dealing with it. And eventually, as we ended the walk, it was like half hour of the walk, uh, half hour or an hour walk. I said, Dr. Oziel, we did it. And what was Dr. Oziel's response? He said that he thought that I had done it. He thought that I was going to tell him that evening, and that I hadn't really had a choice, that I was so overburdened by the fact that I was eventually going to tell him. Overburdened by what? The pain and the guilt. Did Lyle Menendez know that you had gone to see Dr. Jerome Oziel? No. Did Lyle Menendez know that you were going to tell Dr. Jerome or Dr. Oziel that you had killed your parents? No. What happened after Dr. Oziel stated that after he stated that he thought that you were going to tell him what you had said? What was the next thing that you remember him saying or you saying? At that point, I started to explain to him what it was that I couldn't live with, why I couldn't live with this, why I was having so many problems with my brother in talking about these issues for his own issues, and he wanted to know about facts about what had happened. When you say he wanted to know facts, what kind of questions was he asking? He told me that he would deal with my letter, sorry, my wanting to take my own life later, that he wanted to know what had happened in terms of, and what, I told him that we had run into the room and that the shootings happened and that we did afterwards in terms of trying to create an alibi. And I just gave him various details. He kept asking more and more. So, in essence, you told Dr. Oziel the things that you had done, the facts that you had done when you entered the room that you testified here in the jury, to the jury. Yes. And you told Dr. Oziel the truth about what you did following killing your parents with respect to the shotguns and the trip to the movies. I told them we left them off at Mulholland, that we tried to go to the movie theater, we tried to get a hold of Perry in Santa Monica, and we came back to the house and called the police. Now, who was directing the conversation? Was it just talking about these things, or was it Dr. Oziel asking you specific questions that brought you or that brought forth this information? By this time, we were back in his office, and it was pretty hysterical I was pretty hysterical in terms of crying and to an extreme. So I was just blurting out things. He would ask questions. What kind of questions was he asking? Were these questions that were directed towards the information you were giving him? He asked me when we got the guns. I guess the answer is yes. In other words, you were answering the questions that he was asking? Yes. Did he know at this time, uh, did he now at this time seem to be concerned with your emotional condition? No. Did you try to tell him how you were feeling? That's what I wanted to talk about, how I was going to live with the fact that I had done this. And I primarily wanted to hear him tell me that I was not a bad person and that I could live. And at this point, I believe he asked if Lyle knew that I was there. He asked you if Lyle knew that you were there? Yes. How did he communicate that to you? He asked me if Lyle knew that I was there telling him these things. What did you tell him? I told him that my brother did not know. What was his response? That he asked me if I was going to tell my brother the fact that I had confessed to Dr. Oziel that I had done this and that I was responsible for my parents' death. And I told him that I didn't know what I was going to tell Lyle and that I hadn't even planned on even telling him and I hadn't even thought about it. Maybe I shouldn't tell Lyle because maybe I should. He thought definitely I should tell Lyle that, in fact, he wanted to call Lyle on the telephone right away, right then. Did Dr. Oziel express concern that you had confessed to him and Lyle Menendez didn't know that you had done so? Yeah, he was focused on that at that moment. Do you know why it was that he wanted to get a hold of Lyle Menendez? Because I hadn't given him a good thought of how I was going to tell Lyle and give Lyle this knowledge. And so he felt Lyle should know right away and he wanted to bring Lyle, he wanted to call Lyle on the phone and eventually asked him to come over that night. Did Dr. Oziel ever suggest to you that you should turn yourself into the police? No. Did he ever say anything about the location where the shotguns were? Yes. What did he say? He said that we should take them and bury them in the desert. So he was going to help you cover up your crime, basically. What kind of things was Dr. Oziel talking about your mother and your father up to this point or before this point? Yes, he talked in general about my mother's depression and my father being this very strong man. What did Oziel say about specifically about your father? Before this point, I was talking to Dr. Oziel about how great my father was and how I wanted to write a book about him, and he was telling me about how controlling my father was, and that's probably why he was so successful because he was so brilliant. What was your mother, or what about your mother? He told me that she was a pitiful woman, that she had a miserable life, and that she didn't want to live anyway. Did you tell Dr. Oziel that your mother was a pitiful person? No. Did you tell Dr. Oziel that your mother didn't want to live anyway? No. But I liked hearing it. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, this would be a good place for me to break unless the court wants me to continue. The court says, No, that's fine. Okay, we'll resume then tomorrow at 8:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone and don't form any final opinions about it. Don't permit yourselves to be exposed to anything about it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We'll be in recess until 8:30 and they end for the day. We're going to keep going just a little bit longer because I want to. But I'm going to take a quick potty break and for me and the dog and be back. So you don't go anywhere. And I'm back. All right, so we are going to get right into, whoops, what did I do? So, okay, yeah, okay, that's where I wanted it. All right, so today now we're skipping over to December 14th. So we just finished the 13th of December 1995, and now we're moving on to the morning of the 14th. Following proceedings were held in open court outside the presence of the jury. So we have a little bit of argument uh, taking place. And the court says in the trial, the defendants and their counsel and their prosecutors are present. Good morning. Is there something you wanted to talk about? Mr. Levin says, Yes, Your Honor. We have presented the court with a request for the court to take judicial notice requesting the DMV record. I assume the court's been handed it. The court says, I have, and I left it in the chambers. Do you have another copy? Mr. Levin says, Certainly. Court says, Yes, I've seen it. Mr. Levin says, We are requesting that the court take judicial notice of the request just handed to the court, and as soon as the jury comes out, make that admonition or give that admonition. The court says, People wish to be heard further? Ms. Nahara says, Yes, Your Honor. I was given that admonition this morning, and there was a change, and the people wanted to suggest. I was working on that change this morning, as counsel knows. I wanted time to make a Xerox copy for counsel, but counsel wanted to do it this hearing first thing. So I have a copy. I'd like the court to pursue it, or I could read it on the record. The court says, Well, why don't you show it to counsel? Ms. Nahara says, I'll do that. Pause in the proceedings. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, we object to the people's lengthy dissertation regarding the courts. We believe that what the prosecution wants the court to do is go far beyond, number one, what the defense wishes to offer during this part of the examination. The court says, Let me see it. Let me see it so I know. Ms. Nahara says, Your Honor, I'm also handing you a copy of the actual printout, the exhibit in question. Court says, All right. So basically, your objection is that you don't necessarily have an objection to the court taking judicial notice of this, but object to it being done at this stage. Is that what you're saying? Mr. Levin says, Well, that's part of it. First of all, the request for judicial notice is on a specific item of evidence that has not been introduced in this trial. The items that the prosecution are seeking the court to take judicial notice of are things that have been adduced at trial. Therefore, it is unnecessary for the court to take judicial notice of any issue upon which the jury has already heard evidence. They do not need this. And so at this point in time, The only thing that we are requesting the court take judicial notice on is the item which we have designated in our admonition. If at a later time, for some reason, the prosecution wants to go into an additional admonition that the court should give, I mean, I would be prepared to argue it at that time, but I don't think it's proper for this prosecution to, what is a proper request for the court to take judicial notice of, add things to it, to one, water it down, and two, mislead the jury with respect to other items that they wish to have the jury hear. The court says you covered a lot of territory in that, but basically your objection is that this material, that if it's brought out, should be brought out during cross-examination or the people's, or more appropriately, the people's rebuttal rather than at this stage. Mr. Levin says, that's correct, Your Honor. The court says, and that your request for judicial notice is a limited request to a certain matter and nothing beyond it? Yes, Your Honor. Much better said. The court says, as far as the additional things that the people are requesting for judicial notice, I haven't compared them to the DMV printout. From the face of it, I don't see how this information differs from that which the defense is requesting judicial notice, except for the fact that at this point, I'm dealing with a defense request for judicial notice, and at a later time, if the prosecution makes a similar request, it would have to be dealt with in a similar fashion, taking notice of whatever is contained within that particular exhibit. So, if it's in the people's case or at some other stage, then it can be dealt with again. So, I'll just defer the people's request and return it to the prosecution with the understanding that they can make that their request when it's their opportunity to present evidence. We're now dealing with the defense's presentation of evidence. Good. Good that the court actually sided with. So if you can't understand what's going on, basically, um, taking judicial notice just means, okay, I'm aware of it. The judge says, yes, I've taken notice of this particular issue. So the defense is trying to get a small portion of the DMV record issue agreed to or given to the judge to take judicial notice of. And that's appropriate and fine because it's their turn to show their evidence. Apparently, the prosecution wants to make some modifications or whatever to this judicial notice, but it's not their turn to present evidence, so it's not actually appropriate for them to be objecting and saying, we want to modify it or change it. It's and he agreed that they'll it's not appropriate for them at this time to be giving that their evidence over, that they can do that in their rebuttal. So after the defense rests, the state will have an opportunity to rebut, and that is when they can bring the evidence in. Court goes on, so the court will take judicial notice of that which is being requested, and before we have the jury out, one additional thing, the issue relating to Mr. Rand's book, tagged on this video too, if you have not read it, it is like the quintessential Menendez trial book. It tells you everything about the first trial. And I think it goes into maybe, no, it can't go into the second if they're talking about it here. So it's just the first trial. Okay. The issue relating to Mr. Rand's book, I've now received the stipulation and it was provided to the prosecution as well. Any further comment before we resolve that issue once and for all? Mr. Khan, for the state, says, yes, we still object to the last three sections. I think it's enumerated 1, 2, 3, and 4. We would object to the last three paragraphs. I don't think that it is necessary to include those paragraphs in this particular court order. The concern of Mr. Rand seems to be and should be addressed to whether we are disseminating his material outside of court, whether we are handing out copies and so forth of his book outside the court. We have no intention to do so. Our intention is going to be for use in court if indeed something from that needs to be used or it coincides with something that we were going to use anyways in court. So we would object to two sections 2, 3, and 4. Ms. Abramson says, "Our problem, Your Honor, is the people had stated months ago that they weren't going to use any part of that manuscript, and they still haven't designated what part they think they have a right to use." The court says, "Okay, well, at this point, what I'm going to do is order the prosecution, and this was done before. It was my understanding that the document was going to be provided to the defense." Ms. Abramson says, "We did get the document." The court says, "When did you get it?" "We did get the document. I misspoke yesterday." The court says, "So you've had it since that hearing?" Ms. Abramson says, "We had it some weeks ago after that hearing, but we do have the document. The problem is the document is 2,000 pages long." The court says, "You have it. So I don't have to worry about that particular protective order at this moment." Ms. Abramson says, "You're going to have to worry about it." The court says, "I thought you were worrying about it, about not having it." Ms. Abramson says, "We do have the document. The question is, the people have now stated for the first time that they have some intention of using part of the document, and we're going to object to them using any part of the document since Mr. Rand is asserting the shield with respect to this manuscript." So, I'm assuming that is like journalistic privilege or something, if there is such a thing in California, or was at the time, so that he doesn't have to testify or whatever. Or I don't know. So if my guess is they're going to try to use the document to cross-examine my client, and we have, based on a manuscript, the author of which is not cross-examinable or callable on these issues because he's asserting the shield. We can get to what, if you remember, Rob Rand actually testified in trial one. This time around, he says, "I'm asserting the shield," whatever that is, so that he doesn't have to testify. We can get to that when we do the 402s about what they can cross-examine my client about. The court says, "Okay, we can bring that up." Mr. Gessler's for Lyle, if you remember, just reminding you because he doesn't come up very often. Mr. Gessler says, "Just to add, we're also objecting on the ground of outrageous government conduct that, in effect, they're seeking to use a document that is stolen, at least in the sense of literary property, and a continuing offense of concealing and using the stolen property without the consent of the owner who distributed it for limited purposes to limited people." So the prosecution stole it and was using it without Rob Rand's expressed consent. So that's an additional ground, constitutional ground, as well as the one about the inability to prove up the facts. And should there be a negative answer under the Locino cases, I'm assuming Locino cases, that have already been given to the court. The court says, "We can cover all that ground in the hearing. We deferred until after the direct examination." Mr. Levin says, "Your Honor, I have a couple of other points I want to bring up with the court. I estimate that I have approximately an hour to an hour and a half left with respect to the direct examination of Erik Menendez. I then request that Mr. Gessler be given the opportunity before cross-examination to play the videotape and briefly question Erik Menendez regarding the issue that occurred in the limousine." The court says, "Sure." Mr. Levin says, "And before I officially complete my direct examination, I would like to be heard with respect to the scope of the cross-examination that will be allowed by the people in this case, specifically concerning the issues that we raised in our moving papers." The court says, "We already said we're going to have a hearing." Mr. Levin says, "But the reason I want to do it before when I'm done with my questioning is because if the court allows certain issues to be gone into by the prosecution, I would wish to bring them out in the direct examination. I'll The court says, "Okay, we'll discuss that before. We'll discuss whether we'll hold that hearing before you finish your direct, before we hold that hearing. So I just don't want to waste any more time." Okay. He's all about wasting time, or not wasting time for the jury, but he doesn't allow time for arguments to be heard. The court says, "Okay, we'll discuss that before blah, blah, blah." Sorry. So I don't want to waste any time. Mr. Levin says, "How will we do that, Your Honor?" Ms. Abramson says, "We'll take a recess." Mr. Levin says, "Can I have a signal to the court?" Can I give some signal to the court? The court says yes. Mr. Levin says, the other thing is, Your Honor, I have the tape, the December 11th, 1989 tape, queued up to a certain point, and I do intend to play that to the jury. So I wanted to inform Mr. Khan and the court that's the purpose of the tape recorder, and that's what it's for. It's from the, pardon me? Ms. Abramson says, do you want to have the transcripts? The court says, let me ask you, wouldn't it be better just to play the whole thing again since it's been so long since the jury heard it? Mr. Levin says, perhaps, Your Honor. The court says, it just seems easier that way, and they'll remember it. I don't know. Why do you need to play it again? Mr. Levin says, perhaps if Mr. Khan wishes to do that, I don't really want to do that at this point. The court says, that's up to you. You can do it any way you want. Well, then why are you questioning him? Let him do it how he wants. It just seems to me that it's been a long time since they heard it. They probably don't remember, says the judge. Hold on, my dog is, she's all tangled in the blanket. 1 second. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know why the court is telling or suggesting to the defense you should do it this way. It's a little odd that he's telling him how to do his case. But anyways, how to present it. Court says, it's up to you. You can do it any way you want. It just seems to me that it's been a long time since they heard it. They probably don't remember. Mr. Levin says, I agree. I agree. I didn't consider that. But at this point, I'd just like to play one particular portion. The court says, fine, fine. Anything else? Mr. Levin says, that's it. The court says, okay, let's get the jury out. So we're about to resume direct. And the court says, we're ready to resume with the testimony of defendant Erik Menendez, who is on the witness stand. Remember, this is a brand new day, December 14th. Before we proceed with that, counsel for the defendant, Erik Menendez, has requested that the court take judicial notice of some things, so I'll do that. And the court takes judicial notice, which means that this is a fact that is established by the fact that I'm taking notice of it, and it's proved by that. The court takes judicial notice of records of the California Department of Motor Vehicles stating that on July the 7th, 1989, Erik Menendez was cited for driving without a valid driver's license, California driver's license, in his possession, a violation of California Vehicle Code Section 12951. That is the extent of the motion at this point. All right. Of the notice at this point. So basically, just the fact that he was pulled over and cited for driving without a valid license, meaning he didn't have a license on him, which proves that he lost it often, perhaps, or used or often went out without one. All right. So you may proceed. Mr. Levin says, thank you. Erik takes the stand and direct is continued. Mr. Menendez, we left off yesterday talking about the conversations that you had with Dr. Jerome Oziel on October the 31st, 1989. Isn't it crazy how like my nose is clear now? It was so messed up I couldn't breathe, and now all of a sudden it's like fine. I don't get it. Anyways, at that time, Dr. Oziel tell you at that time did Dr. Oziel tell you why he thought he had killed you had killed your parents? Oh my God, let me read that one more time. At that time, did Dr. Oziel tell you why he thought you killed your parents? Yes. Did he characterize your father by using any particular terms? Yes. Did he call him extraordinarily controlling? Objection leading. Sustained. How did he characterize your father on October 31st, 1989? As a controlling person to the extreme, dominating, ferocious, different adjectives such as those. Did you tell Dr. Oziel these things? No. Did Dr. Oziel render an opinion to you concerning how difficult it would be for you to live under those circumstances? Yes. What did he say? He said that it was circumstances that were impossible to live under. Did you respond to Dr. Oziel when he was talking about your father this way? I suppose I did. I guess I was crying a lot of the time, and he was asking me why, and I was waiting for Lyle to come. I was saying, I don't know why. I don't know why it happened. And he started talking about my parents in general, what their personality types were, and that's how it got whittled down to reasons. Did he say things about your mother? Yes. And yesterday you testified that he said something about your mother that you liked? Yes. What was that? He said that she had a miserable life, that she was extremely of the ideation to take her own life, and wasn't a happy person who wanted to live. And what I meant by I liked that was that it was comforting to me to think that my mother didn't want to live anyways because I had killed her, and to think that she didn't want to be alive anyways was in a weird way comforting. Did you think or have the thought before you killed your parents that your mother did not want to live? No. She no longer was thinking of taking her own life at that point. When did she think of that? In 1986, 87, when the first move out to California. Oh my God, when we first moved out to California. I'm sorry, guys, I can't get my words out of my mouth today. At least not what I think is on the paper, anyways. Was she of the life taking of herself ideations in 1989? No. Did so around the time of the homicides when they took Kitty and Jose's life, Kitty was not having ideations about taking her life at that point because things had improved between her and Jose, whatever she emotionally blackmailed him or whatever to get him to act like a better husband. So he was acting like a better husband for the last couple of years. And I don't know if maybe he quit his affairs, perhaps. Maybe I think she threatened him with what he was doing with the kids, to be honest. I think she finally had it when she found out about the mistress and followed her, went and like bought a ticket and went to New York to just stalk her. Um, yeah, I didn't think that she was in her right mind. Anyways, uh, but I do think that she may have manipulated Jose after that. Like maybe she just thought that the the 10-year affair with the mistress or whatever was a step too far for Jose. So she said, "I'm going to tell everybody who you are, and I have proof, and I'll turn you in," or whatever emotional blackmail she did. And I think that's what happened, why they were a happier couple. That's just a speculation on my part that I just knowing this case and the facts of the case, it just kind of lines up to what I kind of think. I don't know. Anyways, so did Dr. Oziel ever express any interest in how much money you may receive from the estate? Yes. Did he do that before Lyle got to the office? Well, he actually did that at the memorial service 2 months before. What was it that Dr. Oziel said to you about any interest he had in with respect to the estate? At the memorial service? Yes. There was discussion at the time of who would be the probate attorney. He said that he had a good attorney who was a friend of his that we should use. He said that we shouldn't use the probate attorney that my uncle Carlos was going to hire, that he was too young, and just that there were a lot of businesses and investments that we could do with that he wouldn't leave us out there not knowing what to do with the money, what we had that we had a lot of ways to help us. Did he actually show you business cards that affiliated him to certain businesses other than being a psychologist? I like that. A psychologist. I don't know if that was a typo, if that was on purpose, but I like it. Dr. Oziel was an awful human being, and he was so bad in the first trial that the state could not call him back, even though he was their star witness for the first trial. So, did he actually show you these business cards that he's affiliated with? He did that on the 2nd of November. He showed us several of his business cards. By the way, did you receive a bill for Dr. Oziel for attending the memorial service in California? No, not right away. But did he bill you for this time? Objection irrelevant. Overruled. Yeah, after I went to see him on October 31st, he billed me. And that was for what? 3,500. That included the attendance of the memorial service? Yes, that's what it was for. Did Dr. Oziel tell you during this time that he was on probation for having taken advantage of another patient? Objection calls for hearsay and irrelevant. Overruled, says the court. The witness says, no, he didn't tell me that. Mr. Levin says, did he tell you that it was improper for a psychologist to go into business or enter? Mr. Khan says, I would object to all these questions being asked in bad faith, Your Honor. Sustained at this point. Mr. Levin says, did Dr. Oziel tell you how much money he thought you could inherit from this estate? Yes, it was discussed. He had read it on the paper, and the figure 14 million was being talked about. Did you tell Dr. Oziel that you thought you were going to inherit 14 million? No. Did Dr. Oziel, I just want to stay with the business for a minute. Even though we may be going to a later conversation, show the business cards that indicated that he had businesses for you to invest in. Objection irrelevant. The witness says yes. The court says overruled. So he not only did he have businesses, like all these ideas for the money, but he also had his own businesses that he wanted the Menendez brothers to invest in. This guy can't get any sleazier. Um, what businesses did Dr. Oziel have? It was a business called Automax that he had. I remember that one specifically, several other businesses that he was beginning to develop that he needed investments for that he thought was a great idea that could be benefit both of us, him and ourselves. Sure. Did he tell you that he wanted you to invest in his business? He told me that that would make him feel more comfortable with the relationship. So he was trying to somehow blackmail you or coerce you into that. So Lyle Menendez did arrive on October the 31st at the office of Dr. Jerome Oziel. Yes. And was there a conversation in your presence between Lyle Menendez, Dr. Oziel, and yourself? Yes. What was the substance of that conversation? That Lyle didn't want to be there, that Lyle didn't know what I had to that Lyle didn't know what I had told Dr. Oziel about us being responsible for my parents' deaths. That Lyle didn't want to talk to Dr. Oziel until he found out from me how much I had told him and that I had told him and what I had told him. And that Lyle, he was hurt that I had gone to Dr. Oziel and was unable to go to him. How did you feel at that point about you telling Dr. Oziel, you confessing to Dr. Oziel that you had killed your parents? I realized as soon as Dr. Oziel had called Lyle that I had betrayed Lyle's trust, and I wished that I hadn't at that point. But then, when Lyle was in the office, then this was an overwhelming weight. This knowledge of not being able to tell anyone, and I needed to tell someone, and I was hoping that Lyle would be able to talk to Dr. Oziel as well. But he was very resistant because he didn't know what I had told Dr. Oziel. Did Dr. Oziel, in your presence, try to get Lyle Menendez to talk about the killing of your parents? Yes. Did Lyle Menendez confess to killing your parents to Dr. Oziel? On what day? On that day? Or at that time? No. Did Lyle Menendez threaten in any way to harm Dr. Oziel? No. Did Dr. Oziel say that he felt that he was threatened? He said that he felt either threatened or very uncomfortable having this knowledge alone. At one point, he said that trying to get Lyle to open up and talk to him, and Lyle simply did not want to reveal anything more than I had because he didn't know how much I had told him. I think all Dr. Oziel saw with these boys were dollar signs with the whole family. And when the parents were gone and this little tidbit of information gets to Dr. Oziel, he sees this as an opportunity to blackmail them, to get a payday out of them, to something. He's going to somehow make money off of them. He even tries to get them to invest in his businesses. Unreal, man, unreal. He is like one of the most unethical psychologists I've ever heard of. At some point, did you run out of Dr. Oziel's office? I ran out crying. Why? Because Lyle and I needed help, and I understood why Lyle didn't want to talk to Dr. Oziel, but I needed to talk to someone, and it was too frustrating for me. The barriers couldn't be broken, and I ran out saying, I don't want anything to do with it anymore, crying or something along those lines. Did Dr. Oziel ever talk to you on that day about the fact that you felt depressed and wanted to take your own life? He never got back to that. So that was the whole reason why Erik went in, remember? He didn't want to live anymore. It's the only reason he went in. Dr. Oziel didn't even talk about that. It just goes to show that Oziel saw dollar signs with them. That's all. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Back up. The question was Lyle Menendez angry with you for telling Dr. Oziel? I don't know if anger's the right word. I know he felt very hurt that I had gone to Dr. Oziel instead of him, and we talked about that afterwards. Now, did Dr. Oziel, where did you go, by the way, when you left the office? Down to my Jeep. Did anyone else come to where you were down at your Jeep? Dr. Oziel and Lyle, a few minutes later, came walking towards the Jeep talking. Was there a discussion about meeting with Dr. Oziel again? Yes. And did Dr. Oziel at that time say anything about coming to the police or going to the police? No. What did Dr. Oziel say about returning to his office? That he wanted us to return on November 2nd, which was the day after the next day, so we could talk further. Did you agree to come back and talk to him? Yes, we agreed. Why? I don't know. Did you and Lyle Menendez, following October 31st at Dr. Oziel's office, have a discussion about what you would tell Dr. Oziel? A discussion about more than that, but that was part of the discussion. What was it that you and Lyle Menendez discussed following leaving Dr. Oziel's office? We got back to the Beverly Hills house. He wanted to know what I had told Dr. Oziel, specifically if I had told him about any of the sex, and I told him that I hadn't. And he wanted to know basically what I had told him, and I told him that I hadn't had time to tell him much and that I gave him the facts that I had told Dr. Oziel. And we discussed what to do. I suggested that maybe we should tell Dr. Oziel everything, the truth of what had happened, so that he would no longer feel uncomfortable knowing the information. Lyle thought that was a horrible idea, and I promised not to tell. And I wasn't so keen on telling anyways, but that was what was discussed. It was also discussed that we would go back to him November 2nd, basically for damage control, to see how Dr. Oziel was feeling. And I told Lyle that I needed to talk to someone, so he said that we could talk about our family, the fights in the family, a lot of the family problems, mom's ideations to take her own life, and that I could talk about that if that was comforting and what I needed. Lyle wanted to help me, and so he agreed to go back for all those reasons. Did you return on November the 2nd, 1989? Yes. Did Dr. Oziel, and when you returned, did you return with Lyle Menendez as well? Yes. Was there a discussion between Dr. Oziel, Lyle Menendez, and yourself on that day? Yes. Did Dr. Oziel say anything about going to the police? Yes. What did he say? He said that he could go to the police and reveal this information. He said that he had notes and notes of the session in safety deposit boxes. He said that he felt uncomfortable and that he was the only one that knew this information, and basically that's what he said about that. Sounds like blackmail, doesn't it? Sounds like telling him, well, I could go to the police, but and I have all this information on you guys. So what is he's prolonging and dragging on the relationship. It went weird fast. So the second session that they go to, now he acts like he's got something on him. Now you better listen to what I say or do because I have something on you in my safety deposit box. Okay. He said that he felt uncomfortable and that was the only thing, that he was the only one that knew this information. Did he say that he wanted to take a tape or make a tape? Oh my God, I cannot talk. Did he say that he wanted to make a tape? At some point he said that. I don't remember if it was during that session. What did he, I think it was. What did he say to you about making a tape? That he wanted to get my brothers and my voices on tape admitting to the homicides. Why? Because it would make him feel much more comfortable that we had, I guess, trusted him, that he would no longer need or want to go to the police, that it could be used, he said, to reflect upon when he's not with Lyle and I in listening to what we said on the tape. So basically, he just wanted it on tape to blackmail you guys, I think. To basically have, I don't think he had any real notes in boxes, PO boxes or whatever he said, safety deposit boxes. But this is interesting, huh? That we used, he said, to reflect upon when he's not with Lyle and I in listening to what we said on the tape. Oh, he wants to listen back to the tape when they're not there. Got it. Okay. So I I guess I get that. If the for psychologists to record their patients, they want to go back and listen. That makes sense. But I think it was just an excuse to say that to get him on tape so that it's on tape. So you've got your piece of blackmail right there on tape. Now, all these things you're saying about Dr. Oziel, is he alive today to come in here and refute any of these things? Yes. Mr. Khan says, objection calls for speculation, no personal knowledge, no foundation. The court says, well, as far as you know, you can phrase it that way. The objection sustained, the answer is stricken. Mr. Levin says, do you know if Dr. Oziel is alive today? I think Detective Zoller testified that he is. Do you know where he is? No. Are you aware of any reasons why Dr. Oziel would not come into court and testify? Objection irrelevant as to what reasons that witness would uh, point to. Oh, what reasons Erik would think of. Sustained, says the court. Mr. Levin says, did Dr. Oziel, when he told you that he was going to go to the police, tell you something like, I'll come to court and testify against you, deny all this? He didn't say he was going to go to the police. He said that he could go to the police and that it was for Lyle and I to make him feel more comfortable in order for him not to go to the police. But did he ever tell you that he would or would not come to court? Trial. A trial was never discussed. Court was never discussed. He testified in the last trial, did he not? Yes, he did. For many, many days. 7. Did Dr. Oziel say on November 2nd anything about continuing a relationship with you and Lyle Menendez for any period of time? Yes. And what was the nature of the relationship that Dr. Oziel wanted to continue with you and Lyle Menendez? He talked about it at some point in the middle of the session, at the end of the session, that the best thing would be when we do inherit, that we were to invest together and that would benefit him and us, that I needed therapy because of how I was feeling and that he could help me at the same time with that. So he's going to help him with therapy and help him invest money. Okay. What makes him good at investing money? How do we know that? And that us remaining close would be the best solution now that it was only the three of us that knew that Lyle and I were responsible. This is so unethical. You know that Erik had been abused and manipulated by his parents his whole life. And what does the psychologist do? The same thing, trying to manipulate and blackmail them. Did you go to Dr. Oziel to enter into a business relationship with him? No. Did you go to Dr. Oziel to have him assist you in how best to invest your money? No. Did you go to Dr. Oziel for any financial advice? No. Did you think it was a good idea with respect to investing in business with Dr. Oziel? Did you like that? Did you think that was something that you wanted to do? All I knew was that I was in pain and I needed help, and that this man, in my view, the only one I thought might be able to do that now that he knew that I was responsible, and if he wanted to go into investments and to have capital to do that from us, it didn't matter so much to me. It's not why I went to him. It's not why I was there. A million people are telling me what to do with my money, and I figured that that was something that was going to have to happen from what Dr. Oziel was telling me about. Did you make a decision about whether or not you would tell Dr. Oziel that your father had been molesting you, R-ing you, brutalizing you for 12 years? Yes. What was the decision that you made? That it was best not to talk about that. Why not? Because Lyle felt extremely strongly on the issue. It was something that I was ashamed of, and I guess because I had a need to tell him that I killed my parents, but I did not have a need to, nor did I feel guilty about the fact that he had done those things to me. Approximately, how long were you with Dr. Oziel and Lyle Menendez on November 2nd, 1989? I don't remember. 2 hours, an hour and a half? Was there any other conversation or discussion on any other topic that you have not related to the jury? We talked about my mother's depression. He kept asking me um, why I think I did it. I said I didn't know, and he said that he wouldn't expect me to know, that I needed to do extensive therapy, possibly hypnotism to go back, and that's pretty much what we talked about. So he wanted him to continue lots of expensive therapy with Dr. Oziel so he could keep making money off of him. At some point in time, you and Lyle Menendez left Dr. Oziel's office? Yes. Did you have an arrangement to return to any particular day? No. How was it left with respect to your future dealings with Dr. Oziel when you left on the 2nd of November? Well, I knew that it was several months off before the estate would mature to the point where anyone inherited, and he knew that I was going away for a week, so I think it was just arranged that I would call him or my brother would call him in a week and a half. Did you call Dr. Oziel after November 2nd, 1989? No. To your knowledge, did Lyle Menendez call Dr. Oziel after that date? You mean before he called me? Yes. No. Did you receive a call from Dr. Oziel following November 2nd, 1989? Yes. Approximately when did you receive that telephone call? Over Thanksgiving break at my Aunt Terry's. So the end of November? Yes. Was it into December yet? I remember that I was at my Aunt Terry's when I received the call from Dr. Oziel. Did you answer the phone or did someone tell you you got a call from Dr. Oziel? I believe either my cousin or my aunt told me. Somebody told me. I just remember getting the phone. And what did Dr. Oziel tell you in this telephone conversation? That it had been 3 weeks since Lyle or I had seen him. That made him feel uncomfortable, and that it wasn't in my brother's or my best interest to him to feel unsatisfied, uncomfortable with the situation, and that I should come back to Los Angeles and talk to him. That sounds like blackmail and extortion to me. Did you know if Dr. Oziel had revealed the substance of your confession to the police at that point? At this point, he had not. Did you know if Dr. Did you know if Dr. Oziel had told his girlfriend Judalon Smith that you had confessed to him? At that point, I did not know that. Did you at a later time return to Dr. Oziel's office? Yes, eventually Lyle and I had talked to Dr. Oziel again, and it was arranged for Lyle and I to come there in December, and we went there December 8th or December 6th. What happened on December 6th or December 8th? Dr. Oziel told us that he wanted to make this tape and that was agreed upon, and we agreed to come back on December 11th to make the tape. What do you recall Dr. Oziel telling you about the making of the tape of the 6th or the 8th or so of December? Just that he wanted to get our voices on tape, talking about my family life and the fact that we had killed our parents. Did he tell you that he had similar situations with other patients where he had gone or done the same thing? I didn't know at that time, no. Did you ultimately return on December 11th? Yes. And did you return with Lyle Menendez? Yes. Did you talk to Dr. Oziel on that day? Yes. December 11th. And is that the tape recorded conversation that the jury has already heard? Right. Now, was there a conversation that occurred before Dr. Oziel turned on the tape? Yes. How long had you been in his office before the tape was turned on? He began taping an hour after we got there. How long were you in Dr. Oziel's office on the 11th? 3 hours, 4 hours. And the tape that we heard is approximately an hour. Is that the recollection that you have of the period of time from Dr. Oziel's turning on the tape to the turning it off? I remember him putting several tapes into the tape recorder and taping at one point, stopping the tape. It happened for longer than an hour. So maybe he edited these tapes down to only play things that were appropriate or that he felt were appropriate, or where maybe he crossed a line. He took some stuff out. I don't know. Sounds kind of suspicious to me. Okay, so you saw Dr. Oziel placing more than one tape into the recorder while you talked. Yes. Do you know where those tapes are? No, I have no idea. What was the substance of the conversation that took place with Dr. Oziel before he turned off the tape? We talked about what was happening, what Lyle was doing in his life, what I was doing in my life up to that point. We talked about how the estate was progressing, and I remember we talked about the fact that Lyle was not going to become the executor of the estate, and Dr. Oziel was advising that he should become the executor. Are you freaking kidding me? So glad that didn't happen. Wow, this guy, so unethical. This is all so unethical. And I think he's had his license taken away. I hope since then, because of this case, you would think he would have his license taken away, but Who knows? So I remember we discussed when that when unfold when that would unfold, and that we just started discussing the fact that he wanted to take this tape and what he wanted us to basically talk about on the tape, family experiences and so on. What was your state of mind, Mr. Menendez, with respect to this conversation with Dr. Oziel? Did you want to make this tape? No. Did you want to remain in Dr. Oziel's office for any longer than you had to? I didn't want to make the tape. I wanted to talk about my not wanting to live, which was most important to me. I wanted to ease the pain, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Did you know that it was important to allow Dr. Oziel to make the tape for him? Yes, I think it was his primary concern at the time. Now, did Dr. Oziel talk about his theories about why you killed your parents? He talked about that on the 31st, 2nd, and 11th. And did he talk to you about that before he turned on the tape? Yes. So much like the read technique, when officers interrogate someone and apply the read technique on them, they apply this pressure kind of thing. Um, they also, it's very common in coerced confessions, and we just went over Badge of Dishonor, the very first confession of Jesse Miss Kelly from the West Memphis Three, where he was coerced into a false confession implicating himself and two other individuals in a crime. And there were 12 hours of interview that we didn't hear or see. So what we got was the 30 minutes of this was the end of their conversation, but we missed the whole 12 plus hours of what was said up until that point and how many facts and things were fed to the poor kid before then. So I feel like this is similar in a sense that Dr. Oziel had them in the office. He was talking to them, stopping, starting the tape, doing, whatever he's doing, and editing it down however he needs to make himself look better if he needs to. So it's just completely unethical what he did. Did he talk to you about that before he turned on the tape? Yes. Did you contradict Dr. Oziel and tell him no, that's not correct? I, no, I guess not. Why not? The idea that my mother wanted to die was a very nice thought at the time that maybe she didn't want to live anyway and just made me, I don't know how to express it. For some reason, it brought a sense of lessen some of the sadness. Well, had you decided, Mr. Menendez, before you went on tape that you were not going to tell Dr. Oziel about the molestation? Lyle and I had talked about that again after we had seen Dr. Oziel on the 8th or the 6th when we found out it was going to be on tape. Again, I thought that maybe we should tell him everything, and Lyle was firm that we'll just make the tape. Give him what he wants, and he didn't want to open what he called Pandora's box in terms of going into everything about the family. Now, was there a discussion on the tape about your mother being wanting to take her own life and the letter that you found? I believe it was in 87, 86 or 87, yes. And was this Dr. Oziel talking about your mother's depression and her thoughts to take her own life? It was Dr. Oziel talking about it. My brother and I talking about that she was that she had the ideations to take her own life and had tried to take her life in 86 and 87, I don't know, or 87. Did Dr. Oziel connect your mother's emotional state from 86 and 87 to her death in 89? Yes. How did he do that? He knew that she had tried to commit herself unaliving in 86 and 87 and felt that she must have been that must have been how she was feeling in 89. And I mean, again, we didn't contradict that and tell him that that's not true. So it was a strong feeling of how he felt from talking to my mother himself and from Lyle and I signing on to it. Was there a discussion that you and Lyle Menendez were trying to help your mother deal with your father's infidelity? You talked about on the tape? Or you talking about on the tape? Yes. There was a conversation. We talked about the time when I found the letter and my brother we were worried that mom might kill herself. And Lyle went and talked to my mother. Was that true? Yes. What was it that you and Lyle Menendez talked to your mother about? Talked about the fact that if she wanted to divorce dad, we would move back to New Jersey with her and that we would support her all the way and that we really wanted her in our lives and that there wouldn't be a big blow up over I was 16 at the time who would get me or not get me and that I would always go with my mother and we agreed for Lyle to talk to her about all those things. Did Dr. Oziel talk about your parents, specifically your father, in some terms that you just didn't want to hear? Yes. And what terms was it that Dr. Oziel, or how was Dr. Oziel portraying your father in a way that you didn't want to hear? He said that my father was sadistic in some ways evil, controlling, extremely domineering, and treated my brother and I don't remember the words he used, like robots. Did Dr. Oziel infer to you that your father did very bad things and did not deserve to live? Basically, that's what he was saying. Did you sign on to that theory and agree with it? No. Why not? Again, are you referring to what I said on the tape or before the tape or after the tape was played? Well, on tape. On tape, I remember him talking about these things and me not being able to hear it anymore, not wanting to hear it anymore, and feeling like what you were saying that because my dad did bad things or my mother did bad things, that they deserve to die. These things were just not true. And I just didn't want to hear it anymore, and I told him that. Did you have a reaction to hearing Dr. Oziel talk about your father that way? Yes. Did you express that even on tape? Yes. Did you repeatedly tell Dr. Oziel that you had no choice but to kill your parents? Yes. Did Dr. Oziel mention somewhere on the tape that your mother had been totally brutalized by your father? I recall that. Did you tell Dr. Oziel that your mother had been totally brutalized by your father? No. Did Dr. Oziel talk to you on the tape about the fact that you had been disinherited? Yes. I just want to be clear, or I want to clear one thing up to go back for a moment. Had you learned for some particular source that you weren't disinherited? I learned eventually it became known that there was no new will found. I had a discussion with my uncle Carlos about it, my aunt Marta, my aunt Terry. And what did Aunt Terry tell you? Objection calls for hearsay. At what time? Says the court. Concerning, Mr. Levin says, when did the conversation take place? Around Wednesday after my parents died, 2 days after they died. What did Aunt Marta tell you with respect to you being in the will? Well, she told us she was basically going through my father's finances and was telling us how much money she thought was in the estate. She was telling us about different insurance policies that my father had. And I told her that I wasn't going to be in the will, that there was a will that my father had made. And she told me that no, that I'm going to be in the will and that this is what's going to be in the estate. And the numbers, I think the numbers were 14, 15 million. And I told her that the 5 million insurance policy that my father had not taken that, and he was going to take that in September. Just going back and forth about her insisting and me denying it. Mr. Menendez, I want to play a portion of the December 11th. The court says if you're going to do that, let's take a break before we get the into playing the tape, and we'll do it at 10:30. Don't discuss the matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it, and we'll resume at 10:30. So we will stop here for now and continue on in after the morning break of December 14th, 1995, in the Menendez Brothers' second trial. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you like, any other trials that you want to hear or stream, listen to the audio, or have me read a transcript. Give me suggestions down below and let me know. Because we are nearing the end, or we will get close to the Delphi end soon, because we're about to enter into the defense's case shortly. So we're almost done with that. So we need another trial or something to go through. So let me know if you have suggestions. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.